That's not a press gang. A press gang is a gang sent ashore by those Navy ships. And they would hang out at the bars and taverns on a Friday night. So as us lads were having a beer, they would come up behind you when you went out to the alley for a pee, club you on the head and drag you back to the ship. And you woke up. Congratulations, sailor, in the Navy. And if you tried...
Sorry, they used to call Barrington Street, not Down Street.
That's because of the press gangs. And you see there, the other thing is if you were insubordinate or disobeyed or tried to desert that ship and get back to your family, they would keel haul. And keel hauling is they would tie a rope around your ankles and your feet and haul you either along or around the keel. And if you didn't drown, then the barnacles ripping and tearing at your flesh would give you an infection. So who wants to join the Navy then? Or would you rather be a pirate?
I did my 6 years, thank you.
6 years. What judge would have given you that, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
So up here off my port bow, as we get a little bit closer, this is the hidden wharf, and on the land you'll actually see the war room where we have our briefs and our debriefs, along with the mug and anchor pub in Mahone Bay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm live, by the way, Tony. Is that okay?
Yep, you're fine, bud. So that there is the new war room, obviously. And this area off my starboard side, this little point that comes out, is called the Hidden Wharf. And it's called the Hidden Wharf because when Dan Blankenship was digging here in the 70s to get gravel to bolster up the causeway, which had been damaged in a storm, he uncovered a wharf that was at sea level, and also 2 leather shoes that you can see in the museum when it's open again, and a pair of scissors. Some say they date back to the 1600s, Spanish in origin, and others say it's undetermined. But the interesting thing is the largest shoe was size 14. So my daughter has a theory about who hid the treasure here. She said it was either giants or hobbits. We have deer all through the island here. So you see, just off the starboard bow, he's under the tree. You see that?
He's in the,
And so the deer, quite often you'll see on a flat, calm day like today, the deer will be out for a swim. So the deer swim between the islands here. That's how they get from one island to another. And so also the salt water, the cold salt water, helps alleviate the tick bites on their body. So we have a lot of ticks here. A lot of the crew, including myself, we've had Lyme's disease as well. And my little daughter's had it 3 times. So it's and now it's not just Lyme's disease they're carrying up to a dozen other diseases. Yep. So does anybody, this wharf that was at sea level, why would they have built a wharf at sea level? Anybody? No! I was just seeing who's paying attention. It wasn't sea level back then. 6-foot wharf.
Yeah.
So off my starboard side here now we have Plum Island. Some people erroneously call it Round Island, but it's not Round Island, it's Plum Island. Round Island's further out, you'll see later.
That was for sale, wasn't it?
It was, and it's sold, Colin. And so the lady that bought it was going to build a little cottage and Airbnb it. And so again, you can see on the northwest side though, look at how much erosion has happened in the last couple of years.
Won't be long, that'll be gone.
Yeah.
Not a great investment.
And you see a lot of people are building these seawalls around now. That he was going to find the treasure, and he was our ecological disaster. So back in those days, things were different. So he had a different way of doing things. He basically believed if you couldn't dig it up or blow it up, it wasn't worth finding. So he blew up the Stone Triangle area and pretty much dug up the Money Pit area to a depth of 150 feet. So he's the reason we don't know where a lot of stuff is today. And this was a temporary causeway built back in those days to allow him to get his heavy mining and digging equipment across to Oak Island. And he was given a permit as a temporary causeway. And here it still stands today. And you would never be allowed to do this today. As I said, it's an ecological disaster. That whole length there, there's not one single culvert. So what that means is it's created a giant artificial silt barrier. And so it wasn't just the locals over here that were annoyed, but the local indigenous people up the Gold River area, because this interrupted the migratory path for the Atlantic salmon as well. And so some people say now, why not just punch holes in it and put those culverts in? But all you would do is destroy two areas, because then you would have this huge inrush of silt to this side. So the only way around it really would be to aggressively dredge the other side, and there's no way the government will give anybody a permit for that. So we're stuck with it now.
Oh, there goes the budget rental car. Somebody's moving in.
That's my new office moving to the island. Tape Sable. I haven't
the treasure incognito.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
What I was thinking.
With the budget truck.
Yeah, I've actually got a
If it
buddy
was an
that lives
armored
down
car,
the
they'd be
side.
like,
Exactly,
"Well,
yeah.
something's going on." It's a budget truck.
Budget truck, you know,
Well,
Jack's
he's actually
driving.
pretty
You know,
cool. He's got sheep, but he keeps
Carrots.
it donkeys to protect
Yeah.
the sheep, because the donkeys will kick the hell out of the coyotes.
Shoot, I'm too busy talking.
He
I
actually
should have got a
calls it
picture of that
donkey
budget truck.
potato.
Oh, there it is.
And he lives in the house.
Lots of the islands down here, they would bring livestock in the summer to the islands.
Yep, Quaker Island, Colin. They would actually drag a cow out to the island to graze, and the rest of the herd would swim out. And so, quite often here, like you'll see, well, actually a couple of friends of mine were going out to an island deer hunting the other year when they saw a big buck swimming between the islands. as
Oh,
well.
that's cool.
And so, if you look through the trees there, that's Dan Blankenship's house. So when
right
Dan
there.
passed away, that went to his daughter, and so that will be her summer home now. And this grey building, that's the museum and the interpretation centre there. And where the truck stopped, that's our little security gate there. Our gatekeeper is there during the week. And all those cars on the island, they're not tourists. That's all crew on the island there. And so in normal times, you can go to that museum and interpretation center, and that's where you can see all those artifacts on display in the museum, and also get your very own Oak Island treasures. Their hats and your t-shirts and your coffee cups to take home with you.
But you can't go over there, so where do you get them now? You
Oh, you
online.
go
you
online,
can get 'em.
darling.
Online,
So if you go online, the lovely Karen in the museum there, she'll post them out to you.
That's where we got our shirts.
Oh yeah, the salty dog dealer. Yeah.
On the line, online.
Yeah, I was gonna bring my hat and I forgot my salty dog hat.
So this beach area here, as Colin was saying before, this was actually covered in debris a couple of years ago, but also covered in squid 3 years ago.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we had this huge influx of squid, and they were in here, and then then we had a couple of days of westerly winds, which plummeted our water temperatures, and so all the beaches here got covered in squid that were washed up.
It
Dead
was a
squid.
massive kill-off. in
It
the
was
area.
huge.
That's
It was
terrible.
unbelievable. Well, Chris is not going to. Chris normally comes out and says hi.
Is he the guy from at the gate? Chris?
So the interesting thing about this side of the island is
I was talking to somebody.
none of it appeared on TV, but back in season 1 or season 2, we were diving out here. Me and one of my buddies, Spiro Pappas, he's now in Greece working with the Antiquities department there, diving all these shipwrecks they found off the coast of Greece. So between here on Oak Island and Plum Island, we actually found wharf-like structures off Plum Island. And there, that's where we found pottery on the bottom, and also things like clay sailors' pipes and that as well. And so clay sailors' pipes are a very common thing to find in the ocean here. Because back in those days, you couldn't go to the corner store and buy a packet of cigarettes. So you would have a clay sailor's pipe that you purchased that was pre-packed. And then you would smoke your pipe, and sometimes, for good luck, you would break it over your thigh and toss it overboard. Hey, Chris! Good, buddy! So these clay sailors pipes, it's not uncommon to find them off any old fishing wharf. So not just here, but when I was in the UK as well, you get those clay sailors pipes all around the wharves and the fishing piers. So here, I have a few of them. As I said, very, very common.
Oh, yeah.
It's very cool.
So these ones date back to the early to mid 1800s.
Wow.
It's very cool.
The funny thing is, with the Nova Scotian drug laws, I have a lot of my young American tourists coming up here wanting to buy my old clay sailor and use them for the Nova Scotia drug laws. So you can see with the diameter there of the stem, you can actually use micro drill bits and see what that diameter is, and that's how you date them as to what period. So as you've seen on the show, these things turn up on Oak Island and any of the fishing piers around here.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to remember, we've had European settlers here in Nova Scotia since 950, or around 1000. 500 years before Columbus. So any believers here that Columbus found the North Americas?
No.
That's not true. So we actually, if you go to Newfoundland, we have a Viking settlement there, a longhouse, a fishing village that dates back to 950, around 1000. And it's not like they came all that way, jumped off, went for a pee, and then left. It was a fishing village to which they came back. And we also had the Basque fishing fleet around Newfoundland as well. So European settlers 500 years before Columbus. And that was the Vikings. So with that, of course, you're going to find artifacts around any of the small fishing villages.
When I went to Cuba with Aaron Taylor,
Uh-huh.
another archaeologist that came with his friend, his wife discovered that. She's also an archaeologist.
Oh, for
She's
goodness
very
sake.
famous, apparently. I forget her name right now.
I would love to dive off the coast there. I haven't dove there yet, but I was on the other side. Well, actually, we've been all over Newfoundland, not just with beyond Oak Island, but I was diving up there with Dr. Chris Harvey Clark as well. And so we were off Grouse Moorn then. But last year we were in Bruin, off the Bruin Peninsula there, O'Druin Island, and then Conception Bay. And it's not just hundreds, as I said, there's thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 shipwrecks around the coast here.
Wow.
We don't know. We actually have shipwrecks on top of shipwrecks. And the reason being is back then, you didn't have these fancy GPS units. You relied on the sextant at lunchtime or noon to take your bearing and find your latitude. And longitude we didn't have until we had time. Because to get longitude you need time as well. So it's not until Harrison's clocks that we have time and distance. So another thing that was found off the coast of Newfoundland by a very famous Nova Scotian or Newfoundland diver, because they only joined Nova Scotia later in the period, because Newfoundland was separate. And some say they allowed Nova Scotia to join them. But Wayne Mushrow was his name, and he found 2 astrolabes. So they were a Middle Eastern style navigational tool. And both of these, well, sorry, I tell a lie, one was made in Portugal, one was made in France. And they dated back to around 1612. So if you go to Newfoundland, you can actually see them on display out by Port of Astaire at the museum. And so now we're going to head around to Lot 5. What's your favorite theory? Who do you think buried the treasure on Oak Island?
Pirates or privateers?
The question is, was there a
Templars?
was there a treasure on Oak Island?
Ah, okay. Some people,
It was Colin.
so some people say there was no treasure. I believe there had to be something. You know, why would you go to all this work otherwise? So some people say it was Knights Templar. Other people say no, it was pirates or privateers. Some say it was the French, maybe money destined for the American Revolution. Others say no, it was the lost jewels of Marie Antoinette. Some say it was the lost king's ransom of King George II, the British treasure. And you couldn't have a mystery like this without somebody saying it was the aliens that did it. And maybe they brought Bigfoot along for the ride. You know, who knows? You know, all I know is that something strange happened on this island prior to 1799.
There goes the budget.
And so this was the only island that was cut up into lots in Mahone Bay. Out of all the other islands, this is the only one that was cut up into 32 4-acre lots. And that happened in 1759 to 1762. And it was by the General Surveyor of Nova Scotia, Charles Morris. You're from Halifax? Okay, you've got Morris Street in Halifax? It's named after Charles Morris. Yeah, but he's not a very imaginative man. Because when he named this island, any guess what he called it?
Morris Island.
Island number 28. So Oak Island was not always Oak Island. Oak Island started its life as Smith Island, because Captain Smith, Captain Gifford, Captain Rouse, and Captain Andrews, they divided the islands up in Mahone Bay amongst themselves. Then after that, it became Gloucester Island, named by the British, and then Island number 28, and only in the late 1700s did it actually become Oak Island, named for the oak trees that were here. And that's controversial as well, because some people say there was canopy oaks here, and they are not indigenous at all. They're from the Carolinas. And other people say, no, they were red oaks. Again, I don't know. There's none of those left. So whatever those trees were, back in the early to mid 1700s, they were all cut down, not just for treasure hunting, but for farming as well. So everything you see standing now is pretty much circa the 19th
Yeah,
century.
'cause this just would have been flat farmers' fields at the time.
Exactly, Colin.
Were all the lots privately owned at one time?
The lots were, but you've got to remember, back in 1785, after Sam Ball started purchasing, between 1785 and I think 1835, Sam Ball ended up with 9 4-acre lots. 8 that he purchased, and 1 that when he finally petitioned the British to grant him the 4 acres to which he was entitled, instead of asking for 4 acres of fertile land on the mainland, he asked for lot 32, the swamp area. Why would you do that unless you knew something about it? So what we're going to do now is head around to lot 5. Any questions you might have about lot 5? You never know who you can see there.
See anybody in there? No?
I just see the back. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. It's just Shipwrecks.
Okay, quiz. Who used to own this place here?
Robert Young.
Robert Young. And you know when he bought it off Fred Nolan? No, much later than that. So Robert Young purchased this off Fred Nolan. And Fred's house is there. And so when Fred passed away, that went to his son Tom. So that's their holiday home. And so when Robert purchased this, that didn't sit well with Dan. And Dan controlled the Causeway with an easement for Fred.
Right there.
And so, even though Robert owned this land since '92, he was never allowed to drive across the Causeway
Oh
to
my
access
goodness.
it. Yeah. That's because of the feud between the Blankenships and the Nolans. Aren't people amazing? The more I see people, the more I love my dog.
I wonder what what that was sold for in '92.
I do not know, Colin, but you'll be able to check
could
it
look
out.
it up.
But
Yeah.
nowhere near what it went for.
Exactly.
So when this lot sold, I was told it went for around $1.2 million
Wow.
for a vacant 4-acre lot.
Wow.
So my wife checked it out on
1, 2.
what do you call that website?
Viewpoint.
Viewpoint. So the interesting thing here is you'll actually see one of Robert's favorite oak trees came down in Dorian, Hurricane Dorian, and you can see its root ball upturned. You see that shallow root ball? Like we said before about the shallow trees on the leeward side. And even though it's on its side, it's been
Still
growing
growing.
since Hurricane Dorian.
The boys up in the.
Yeah, somebody's up there working.
So you can see the archaeology team up there.
There's the pit.
That's probably Billy's boys up there.
Ah,
Behind the excavator.
oh, right there.
See the stones?
Ah, yeah.
That's the one that.
That's that round pit that they've been digging up.
That's what I've heard.
Ah, right
you know,
there, that
again,
close.
Stories, they get bigger and bigger over the years. And it's like
Like,
opinions.
it's
Everybody's got
almost
an
like a
opinion
well
about who
kind
was
of-
on
that
the
well
island or
kind
who
of
did
thing
what.
Yeah.
that
And opinions are like something else. Everyone's got one. So, yeah. So lot 5, if you don't know anything about it, you can just Google it. And Robert had a marvelous website. And on that website, you can see all the artifacts that he actually had found on the island and had conserved by St. Mary's University as well.
So he got out here by boat.
Yep, he used to come out by boat. They say he made over 4,000 trips in his little boat named Bubbles after the trailer park boys. But from my point of view, as I said, everybody's got an opinion of a point of view. What I'm most interested here about this lot is that area on the beach where there's no rocks there. That's probably where they used to pull up their dories. And then you'll see this other gap in the rocks over here. And that was probably a crib wharf back in the day. And so we have found evidence of wharves all around the island here. Not just timbers, but you'll see the square foundations, the cribbing. And that was because people being people wouldn't have got on with each other. So Colin might have said to me, "You've got an ugly dog." And I would have said, "Well, you can find your own bloody way to the island then. You can find your own." And so that's the interesting thing, is why I love diving around here in the shallows. And what interests the team as well is that any of those wharf structures, anything that fell off those men, those boats, those wharves in the old days, could still be in the ocean today. Because a lot of the sailors didn't swim back then. It was bad luck to swim. You were tempting your ship to sink. So they were very superstitious. So instead they would tattoo things on their bodies for good luck. They would tattoo the cross on their feet because they believed God would save them. Or on their calves and thighs and arms. They would tattoo dolphins and pigs and chickens and roosters. People say, "Well, I get the dolphin can swim." But what about these pigs and chickens and roosters? Why were they good luck? They were good luck because in the old days when those sailing ships wrecked on the reefs all around the world, quite often the only survivors were the pigs and the chickens and the roosters. Because when their crates broke open, the pigs would swim ashore and the chickens and roosters would ride in on the debris or ride the backs of the pigs. And so you can still go to an island in the Bahamas to this day called Pig Island. And now they do cruise ship excursions. So you can swim with the descendants of these shipwrecked pigs. So really you're just swimming in pig poo with salt and
Sign me up.
So let's see if anybody's going to wave at you. I do that to you every time, don't I?
Warn me next time.
Warning. So this area here, you might remember a couple of years back, me and Dr. Lee Spence were diving out here.
Yep.
And he thought that we had found a cannon out here by this magnetic signature that we had from our magnetometers. And so we had a little bit of a bet. He thought it was a cannon, and I said, no, it's probably an engine block. Because back in the days, they would put an engine block down as a mooring. And sure enough, Lee ended up buying me and my guys lunch and
Yeah.
path right down here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
So you see there's all kinds of activity on the island.
Constantly.
And if you look over the side, you'll see that shallow reef area as well.
So how far were the wharves and the roads that the water was so much less?
Well, it wasn't just the water down. So the water would have been lower,
Yeah.
but the soil, remember when we see, look here, so the grass and the soil would have been much further out as well. So just if you do the foot a century, you know, if you work on that, if you go back to the time of Sam Ball, this around here would have been where the beach was.
Oh, wow.
So that much difference.
Wow.
I mean, again, if you look
Over here.
over the
Yeah.
side, you're only in 5.9 feet of water here at the moment.
But that would have been exposed.
So this would have been the intertidal zone. So when you see, like me and my guys diving around the shallows, you know, people say, why are you wearing twin tanks? It's only 6 feet deep. And the reason is so it can have camera gear on my tanks and on my manifold, and that way the surface sees what I see. So we have the ROV as well, the remote operated vehicle, and that's like my dive buddy that swims with me. And it's got DP as well, so it's stabilized, so I can push it and it swims back. Very cool. It's also got sonar. It's got 4K cameras and underwater lighting as well.
Wow.
It can also have a metal detector on board and a hook. So we don't just use it on Oak Island here, but we use it for recovering ghost gear as well. And ghost gear is lost and abandoned fishing gear. So we've actually recovered a lot. We even recovered some off Oak Island the other year. And I don't know why nobody heard about it, but just Google it. If you Google Titanic ghost gear off the coast, just past Smith's Cove there, we recovered 5 tons.
Oh, wow.
They just lost a sub that was looking,
Oh, yeah.
that was down there for the
That
Titanic.
was, Ocean Gate.
Wow.
That's tragic. But I heard this morning that they picked up knocking sounds.
Oh, okay.
Good.
So
That means people are alive
it
down there.
may be a recovery yet. But in saying that, I believe tomorrow morning is when they run out of air.
Depends where, how deep they are, probably.
They were looking for the Titanic. They were doing something with the Titanic.
It's rich people going to look at the
Oh, was it?
Titanic, yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's like billionaires on it. No,
It's
contact. They don't know what happened.
See the big crane?
Yep.
So if you look towards the shore now, you'll see that dead tree. And on top of the dead tree is a giant osprey
Yeah.
nest there.
Oh, my gosh.
So she's been in that tree for almost 10 years now.
Wow.
But that's not her original nest. If you look to the right-hand side of the tree, you'll see that tangled mass of roots and sticks and twigs. That was her original nest. Her first nest was brought down by Hurricane Dorian. And so she'll be in there with her chicks on the eggs at the moment, probably. And so when she teaches them to fly and hunt, they will actually get kicked out of the nest. And so they'll go to that other dead tree over there, and they will hang out there, and then they will make their own nests the following year. So I had a girl on board the other day, or a lady from the States, and she said she wishes she could kick her daughters out like that.
Tony,
Yeah?
the nest that was on the top of the crane
Yes?
last year, whatever happened to that?
I believe it was taken down when they took the crane to pieces. Because the crane doesn't drive onto the island, it's too big, it's actually brought down in sections.
Did they move it to a platform
I do not know. They do a lot of that, and on the islands out here, you'll see a lot of them have platforms for osprey. And see, the interesting thing, do we have any Star Wars fans here? Okay, so with these birds being, they're more like a falcon. Like when I was a young boy, my grandmother used to take me to Warwick Castle and watch the falcons. And they would hunt the rabbits and that. These osprey hunt rats and mice, fish, snakes, and they feed them to their chicks. And so with these osprey, if they live about 15 years, it would make all these osprey relation to the falcons, millennial falcons.
Nice. Boom.
They're all weak behind your weight. So they say the osprey's wingspan is about 6 feet as it's flying away from the sun. And then when it's flying into the sun, its wingspan's only 3 feet. Do you know why?
I should have got that. I totally missed that. I needed that.
I'm here all week behind your weight.
We're having a comedy night down in the museum I work at. Come on down.
You're going to use those, aren't you? Actually, my skipper Tyler gave me those.
Looking for comedians.
Oh, there's a lot of work happening here, mate. But you'll see here, this is where we have the foxes come down as well. So we have a lot of wildlife on the island. We have foxes, osprey, eagles, and down here we actually had Canada geese the other year. And the fox tried to take some of the goslings, and the mother goose just went through the fox like that. Geez, they're not leaving me alone this morning. Yeah, so you can see the big digger on the swamp on the other side there. So this here is Fred Nolan's house, so Tom's place now. And you see how Tom has had to put this retaining wall in to protect it from those northwest winds as well that we're getting now.
Do the waves get big?
The waves in here,
are just...
you see, because they don't get huge in here, because even with the northwest, they only have this much fetch across the ocean. So it's on the southern side is where where our really big hurricanes come. But then with Dorian and Fiona, when they hit us here, it was the wind speed that leveled all these trees. And so especially when we go up by the boulderless beach there and Smith's Cove, you'll see it looks like it's been cleared. That was all done by the hurricanes. And then Billy's guys came in and cut all the firewood down. So this side here, that's Frog Island over there. And again, back in the day, if you look at Tabari's maps from the 1600s and 1700s, some say Cyprian Southhack's charts were up here as well. I haven't seen, I would love to see one if I could get my hands on one. But there was actually another island out there, and it was called Adolphus Island. So back then Frog Island wasn't Frog Island, it was Adolphus Island back in those days. So again, when you're doing ship research or research around these islands, you've got to go back in time to look at the charts that were around then. The shape of the land was different, and it was called different things for different meanings. So in Halifax, you know Herring Cove, right? And you know there's a head there called Tribune Head. It's called Tribune Head because the wreck of the Tribune is there. And she's a French ship. And so she was La Tribune. And she was captured by the British and sent back to England, refitted, and then sent to this strange place called Nova Scotia. And on December the 5th, 1797, she wrecked out there. And nobody went out to save the sailors and their families from drowning, apart from one 14-year-old fishing boy from Herring Cove. And his name was Joe Cracker. And so, did you? Oh my God! Okay, they've named a street after him in Halifax now. Joe Cracker Drive is named after Joe Cracker. So he's the only one that went out and tried to save those sailors, guilting the other fishermen into going out.
He saved 2 people.
He did. But the interesting thing, like people on the island here, they'll say, "Oh my God, you know, you find it might just be a piece of wood or a nail," and they don't get the significance of it. So remember what I just said about the Tribune. Years ago, you know, back in the day, when you can actually dive on shipwrecks here and recover stuff, these 2 nails were recovered from the Tribune. And so people say, "Oh, it's just a nail, so what?" but have a look at them. You know, one of these is British and one of them is French. Okay? Remember, the British, we couldn't help ourselves. Everywhere we went, we had to leave a sign. And it was the broadhead arrow mark. And that broadhead arrow mark was on the street signs in Halifax. Remember, if you go down Barrington Street, you'll see them on some of the buildings, the broadhead arrow mark. The British military. It was even on trees down in Massachusetts. And some say the trees were marked, in fact, it was the Pine Tree Act. So initially, it was 26 or 28-inch trees were marked, and they were for the British military, for the timbers and masts for the ship. And then 24 inch, 22 inch, 18 inch. So much so that the locals couldn't cut the trees down to build their houses. And that's why, in the Battle of Bunker Hill, the American forces flew the pine tree flag in protest to the Pine Tree Act. And so every musket, every bayonet, every pick, shovel, axe, and spade, everything British military had that broadhead arrow mark on it. And so, any budding archaeologists here? You are, darling. Have a look at those nails and tell me which one's English and which one's French. Where do you think you'd mark a nail?
On the head.
On the head? Why would you mark it there? That's the part you
Oh,
patch.
okay, got it. This one's English.
How do you know?
Because it's marked
No.
right there.
Even a nail?
Yeah.
Really, Laura?
Mm-hmm.
Goodness gracious. Everything. So if you go home now and your grandfather's left you a beautiful Enfield rifle, like I have at home, have a look at it. It will have that broadhead arrow mark. If you go places like India, Afghanistan, anywhere where the British forces were in mass, South Africa, if you find an old bayonet, any of those things, old salt and pepper shakers, the brass pot salt and pepper shakers, if they were from the British military, they will have that broadhead arrow mark. The cannon, even the cannonballs have that.
To find that little thing.
No, Remington, Enfield gun. Yeah. So you'll see it just where you pull the God, I'm having a brain fart here. Where you pull the bolt back, where you unflip it, pull it back, you'll see it on the side there, and it'll have a date and the broadhead arrow mark. So the tower mark, the king's mark, that's what they call it. Made by it's got JAC on the bottom and the King's Mark broadhead arrow mark. JAC stands for John Andrew Chapman. So John Andrew Chapman, Wilkinson Sword, Saunderson, they all made bayonets for the British military. And they all had the tower mark or the broadhead arrow mark. So here, anybody ever heard of the Bermuda Triangle? No. Where things go wrong?
Yep.
Well, now we're entering the Oak Island Triangle. So this is where everything goes wrong as well. And so this is where we've had GPS go out, underwater communications fail, filming drones crash into the water. And it's not just once, it's a ton of times. You know, well over 100 times. And it's not just us, it's other local boats as well.
Just here?
So some people say it's a spiritual thing. Some people say it's a spiritual for the local indigenous. Others say no, it's magnetic. Others say it's a mineral vein that extends from the Gold River out here. Others say it's where two tectonic plates meet. Others say it's an alien spaceship on the bottom of the ocean. Some people say it's a shipwreck, and it's the iron from the cannons, or the bronze, or the gold, or the silver. We don't know. Okay, all we do know for sure is that strange stuff happens in this triangle. So the apex of the triangle is Apple Island, which is dead ahead, that little island. The left-hand side of the triangle is Frog Island. The right-hand side is Oak Island. And the base of the triangle goes from the point on Frog Island all the way here to the Boulderless Beach. And so remember the Boulderless Beach? This is the deepest place on Oak Island And that's where there's no boulders. It looks like they've been manipulated by man, moved away. But this, if you were to bring a ship into Oak Island, is the deepest part of Oak Island. So even this close to shore, we're still 20 feet of water. So I'll bring us in closer there. See it? Yeah. See, you guys see that?
Looks like a Gary flag on the beach there.
I have no idea. I
Oh,
don't see any
yes,
flag.
there is. Right there,
What
babe.
flag?
Little orange flag.
I still don't see any flags.
Right there. You don't see that? Yes, he does. He's joshing us.
Maybe it's a Bobby Dazzler riding there. What do you think?
Yep.
See, even this close to shore. Whoa, it's a seal.
No.
Did you see it?
Pull you right over the side of the boat.
Isn't it a fish? It's just a fish.
So we have had seals wash the shore here. We do get a lot of sharks in here. So my other two skippers, Jay and Noel, they saw 2 sharks take 2 seals just off here simultaneously.
No way.
Wow.
I was walking my dog on the right out on here.
Uh-huh.
And found a half a seal.
Is that right?
Oh, that's so sad.
And so we've just off that point, you see out there by Robert's house, that's that big, beautiful, what looks like a beach. Over there, that's not a beach, that's his retaining
I never
wall.
realized it was so steep up that hill there.
And
That
so
was
when we were diving, doing his mooring, he actually saw a shark take a seal just out there as well. So there's a lot of them. But again, what's happening is our seal population's gone through the roof. So this is becoming more like Huntsby in South Africa. So we're seeing more and more of them there. Look at that, there's his head going out there.
Oh, is that a seal right there? There he
You
goes.
see him swimming out there?
Yep.
It was a seal. When he said it flipped.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a fish.
Lots and lots of them around. There's a big shoal just right over here. The high tide's covering it up. Or over here, I should say. They'll all be basking in
The best one here is Sheep Ledge. You see where that green marker is out towards Hancock? You go out there in the evening on a half tide, on a calm evening, when it's maybe slightly overcast, and you'll see all the seals arched up on the rocks. Quite often you'll see sharks as well.
Oh.
Are we going there later, Colin?
Big birthday boy dragging behind it.
Heal them.
Yeah, well, happy birthday!
Oh, thank you very much.
Birthday people get to be dragged behind the boat.
I didn't bring my wetsuit
Lure
or
them
dry
along.
suit. I didn't bring my dry suit. Yeah.
There he is. He's
So
just-
this area here, remember I said we have never lost a person on our charter?
Oh no.
So this is where we found one.
How?
So we were out here and we were doing the same talk now about all the strange things that happened in this part of this triangle. And a strange wind blew off the hill there, almost like one of those little dirt devils, like a little hurricane coming down. And it came across the water, across the boat, and blew one of my client's baseball caps off into the water. And I said, don't worry, we got a boat hook here for rescuing hats and also plastic bags. And the reason we rescue plastic bags is because they kill the giant
Seal.
sea turtles.
Oh.
And balloons down. So when we rescued the hat, we turned into the swell, which we normally wouldn't do. And there, off the bow, we saw a man's head in the water.
Oh no.
And his arm moved, so we knew he was still alive. And so we went on over, and he was going under and then coming up. No life jacket on. And so we managed to gaff him and pull him on board here. And we got him breathing and managed to settle him down. And we called Life Flight, the helicopter, and an ambulance to meet us at the resort. But when we got back, he wasn't doing too well. And so it's a phenomenon called secondary drowning, where you've ingested so much water it affects the surfactant in your lungs. It's quite often people go home and go, oh my God, I almost drowned. And they'll go to sleep. So Brian, they managed to get him to hospital by chopper, and they resuscitated him, and he stayed 3 days in the ICU
Wow.
in Halifax, and then was released.
Wow.
And later that night, we found his boat upside down, drifting. We towed it to Oak Island there, and the boys, I think it was Doug and Scott, managed to bring it ashore.
Wow.
And then I got it back on a trailer, and Zach from Mahone Marine managed to get the outboard going again. So when Brian was released, we could give him his boat.
Wow, that's an
Wow,
awesome
that's
story.
And so you can't make this stuff up, guys. Just
No.
Google it, and just Google Oak Island Rescue, and you'll see some lady was actually videoing it while we were doing it. But when I initially went over, they thought it was a joke, some part of some show. And I'm like, no, this is real.
Wow.
So afterwards, after the ambulance took Brian away, we took them back out to finish their charter. All but 2 ladies said there were no way were they coming back out here. So Brian left Mahone Bay at 10 o'clock that morning in the Little Fish Reaper. That was the name of the boat he had bought. We picked his body up at 2.
Yeah, it's not a good name.
Wow.
All that time in the water. Brian
Wow.
doesn't remember being picked up by us. He doesn't remember the helicopter ride. He just remembers going beneath the waves, thinking the sharks will get me now. That was his last thought.
It's deceiving down here. It feels like a day like this, and in the afternoon, all of a sudden the little wind comes up, you get yourself in a lot of trouble real quick.
That's exactly what Colin said. So normally in the afternoons the wind picks up here. It was so calm one morning, me and my wife left Mahone Bay and it was flat like a mirror. And we saw a little piece of wood sticking up with a sail on it. We went over and some kid had made a stick and a sail on this little piece of wood. It was that calm, it stood out. It was an hour and a half with both engines full bore to get us to the wreck of the SS Atlantic in Terrence Bay. And then as Colin said, unpredicted, the weather went to hell in a handcart. So what took us an hour and a half to get there, took us 6.5 hours to get back to Chester. And we stayed the night there.
Wow.
Interesting was last summer, we were saying that the triangle here, the top foolishness, but it was sitting right, actually like right here. It was just drifting. Both my boat was off, and my dog might have been having a
Wobbly pop.
The boat was coming right in here, literally bursting the flames.
Wow.
Anyway, we turned the boat on and powered and went over. No life jackets, no nothing. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, no fire extinguisher. Get the fire out. Struck the back end, but it was like a zone.
It's, you know what, Colin? I've got no idea what goes on here in this area, but it's weird. And this is also, that's where the Frog Island Shoal is. And so that was one of the marking points when Travis projected the star sign down for Pallades, so Taurus. That was actually one of his markings there as well. Some people said, well, he's crazy. It's just the middle of the ocean. But if you look at my sounder, you'll actually see it's not the middle of the ocean. You see it's this tiny little reef that comes up. And if you look on DeBarra's maps, it was an island back in those days. That's right out there.
And 2 summers ago, on Apple Island, deceived me. I was saying, people always think about these big ships coming and going from in here. It's unbelievably difficult to traverse. And an older couple with a sailboat, and we were coming, I had a whole boat full of people were coming. Elderly couple, local, knew the area, and ran to shore. Ran to ground on the shoal off Apple Island.
Wow.
And couldn't get herself off, and didn't get the postcard.
Oh, wow.
Back over and made the rescue on the street.
We normally, in a year, we'll pull 4 or 5 people back in. So, not necessarily with the charters, but if I'm out here with a charter or one of my other skippers, we'll take one of our boats. Off round Nubble there, we pulled 2 in last year. There's a shallow reef, and as Colin said, this one here off Apple, it extends back here about 300 meters. You think you can go right through there, but you can't. On the other side of Oak Island, when we go around to the Money Pit area, there's an area called the 5-acre shoal, and it's just 5 acres of reefs and shoal.
Even off Isaac's Point, there's big troughs and stuff.
Well, Isaac's Point used to be dry land, Colin. So that was eroded away. Out through that gap there, that's the open Atlantic Ocean. So that's what eroded Isaac's Point away years ago. So some people say the swamp, hey, if the sea level was lower, the swamp must have been dry. Not true. All that stuff in front of the swamp was once Isaac's Point that was eroded away. Erosion is a 2-step process. Eroding, the taking away, and then depositation. So it takes it away from one place and deposits it. So this here is Smith's feeds the white hopper or the shaker table, and that vibrates and has the water, and quite often you'll see Doug Kroll, Jack and Charles around that shaker table area looking for those artifacts. Artifacts like the parchment and also the bones that were found as well.
And what would bones be doing 160 feet in the ground at Oak Island?
Could it be on Oak Island?
Pieces of bone, like 3-inch pieces of bone. That is so bizarre.
You know what? It's the strangest thing. I mean, again, people have been here way back. I mean, you don't forget the indigenous have been here for tens of thousands of years. And again, you know, people say treasure ships coming into Smith's Cove. Okay, guys, look over the side.
Water. The Coffer Dam, when it was here, was incredible.
It was enormous.
It was really hard. The TV
Yeah,
show,
it's not
it's
very
hard
deep.
to get the scope of it.
Yeah.
The size of it was an unbelievable project.
How far out did it come, the coffer
The
thing?
Coffer Dam, actually you can see the remains. If you look here, you can see the remains of what some people believe is another coffer dam. So look here, you'll see that little piece of timber sticking up there.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that used to be the tusk, and you'll see this arc of weed. You see that arc of weed? So that comes all the way in here, and that's a timber and or stone, and so it comes into this area here where this pit is, this freshwater pit. And then the steel coffer dam was on the outside of this, so it would come in here all the way, and then this part here where that little T section is, this is where the jut out was, the 50 feet jut out. And so that's where those artifacts and things like the U-shaped structure, the L-shaped structure, and the Wharf-shaped structure were inside the coffer dam here. And this is where the flood tunnel system is, the coconut fiber, and also where Gary Drayton found the Knights Templar cross over by that rock.
So Tony,
Yes.
I see that water tote, and there's a red marker and some stuff just
Yes.
up in there. Would that be one of the Mahone sensor implants in there?
Normally you'll see them in like almost drain pipes.
Is that what it looks like?
Are they still in the ground?
Well, this is,
I don't know.
we've been having lots of debates over this because
oh.
there's markers here from the other, I guess when we go to
There's
the other
markers
sides.
all over the place. Some of it's are lot markers as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And so some of it is obviously people come up with different theories, and so you know things are marked as well. So with this here, so the Knights Templar theory. Some people believe it was the Knights Templar, and I like that theory as well. I would love it to be the Knights Templar. And so the Knights Templar, that dates back to the 1300s. And some people believe that the Templars came here and buried some of the treasure that they had. Maybe it was treasure from Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem. Because the Knights Templar were actually in the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem in 1183. And in 1183, their seal with the Pope or with the Catholic Church was 2 knights riding 1 horse. And that showed their vow of poverty. Because they were actually called the Poor Knights back then. And the reason being, when they joined the Templar movement, they gave all their assets to the church. And that helped pay or fund the provisions, the horses, and their training. And so they believed, just like the jihadists of today, that they were God's soldiers. And so, later on, 1307, King Philip, he decided he got greedy. And he got this guy called Pope Clement to side with him. And they routed some of the Templars up, tortured them, persecuted them, put to death, and burned Jacques de Molay outside Notre Dame Temple. And Jacques de Molay, from his burning state, was heard to cry, "It is not the Templars that were guilty, but the true offender will be brought to justice that year." And sure enough, Pope Clement died of disease and King Philip died in a hunting accident. So some people believe that those treasures were taken from La Rochelle and placed in other places around the world. Some say some went to Scotland, hence the Rosalind Chapel in Scotland. Some went to England, hence the Temple Chapel in London. Some went to Portugal because King Denny refused to side with Pope Clement and King Philip. And others went, they believe, to Oak Island. And some of those Knights Templar, when they left, some went back to the Holy Land because they did believe that they were God's soldiers. Others became mercenaries. And some people believe that Henry Sinclair, the Scottish Templar, came here to Oak Island and may have had help from the local indigenous burying the treasure here on the island. Other people say that the indigenous then moved the treasure. For every theory, there's a counter theory. For every rabbit hole you go down, there's another one to pop up.
What blows my mind is looking at this beach as it is, and it just looks like a beach, but underneath is the U-shaped structure and the ramp, and it's all there, you guys.
That's amazing to me too, you know, that it's down there. And you kind of wonder who built it and when, you know, when they did the dendril technology, or, you know, they dated the wood of the slipway. I can't remember off the top of my head. Do you remember what the date was on that?
A lot of the stuff, sorry, I would say most, a lot of the stuff is that same period. You know, it's 1700s.
Right.
Because the water level.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It would have been much
Exactly.
lower.
Well,
Right.
You look at
That
it
would have
here.
been-
I mean, we're only just in 11 feet of water now. So this far out, it's only 11 feet.
Wow.
And so if a ship was to come in here, it wouldn't be here. It would have been out there in the channel. Also where we got those strange hits on the magnetometer.
Mm-hmm.
So if a ship was to come into Smith's Cove, it would have sat offshore, and smaller boats, dories or whalers, would have come ashore with artifacts. Maybe that's where the Templar cross on the beach came from. Or maybe there's a shipwreck out here, and this artifacts were blowing in.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know.
Right.
It's a very
Everything
tricky
we
spot
find
to be
doesn't give us any answers. It just gives us
More questions. I know. That's what keeps the show going.
Tony, we're really hoping you're going to answer some questions, but you keep on just making questions.
Give me a question and I'll try and answer it. And if I can't, because of my NDA, I'll just make up a really good story. What do you mean? I don't know. I don't know. Is there a season this year?
Ah.
So that big island in the distance there, that's Tancook Island. And then the gap in the middle there, that's the open Atlantic Ocean. And then you've got Round Nubble, Round Island, Squid Island, Mash Island, Mason's Island, and Rafuse to the side. And this is also where we have our ghost ship appears. So it's a true story. It was an American pirate ship or privateer. And this was in 1813. And she was called the Young Teaser. And so there was a teaser before that was captured by the British. So then they sent out a young teaser. I believe it belonged to a guy called Sam Adams. And they sent it here, and it was picking on the British and Nova Scotian ships. So the British sent out 2 frigates, HMS Hogue and HMS Orpheus, to surround the young teaser by Masons and Rafuse Island. They fired upon the young teaser, and there was a man on board called Johnson, some say a British deserter, Lieutenant Johnson. And not wishing to be hung and gibbeted as a pirate, he walked into the magazine with a flaming torch and set the young teaser on fire. And she drifted in flames all the way from Mason's Rafuse Island area towards the town of Chester, and parts of it came to grief on Meisner Shoal. And if you go to the church in Chester, St. Stephen's Church, some say the cross on the wall is made from timbers from the wreck of the teaser. And others say there's a ghost in the Rope Loft pub, and maybe the subfloor there is made from teaser as well. And there's
Depends
a
on
house
how much
just
you drink
up.
at the pub. Right?
Just up from the teaser is a house that used to be called the Wirtz House, and that's where the bodies of these dead pirates were laid out. And on a dark night or a foggy night, some people say they see the wreck of the teaser on fire drifting towards Chester, with the men screaming in the rigging. And just as Colin said, I believe the more dark and stormy rums you drink,
That's right.
the better your chances.
I think I may have seen it once or
Well,
twice.
I believe David Blankenship's in it, and I'm not sure, I think Charles might have seen it as well. There was actually a story of Dan Blankenship and David thinking the whole island was on fire, and that was believed to be the wreck of the teaser. So with all these islands out here, that Squid Island, Mash Island, there's a channel that goes between there. And this here, if you Google it, just Google Titanic ghost gear, and this area is where he recovered that ghost gear. So it was an abandoned mussel farm from about 40 years ago, and we were actually me and Doug and a couple of other people were actually out scanning for what we believed was a shipwreck. And we found this ghost gear out here. And so the interesting thing and the cool thing, and nobody's heard of this either on the show, is that was the Oak Island team cleaning up the debris from this ghost gear. We were not paid for that. That was voluntary.
I did read something about that.
Oh, did you? Oh yeah, here in Canada, it was all over the news though.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, yeah, but in the States, I guess from the States wouldn't have heard of it. It never made news down there, it should have.
But all in here, all this area in here, it's local predators.
Oh, this is Colin's dead right, this is the 5-acre shoal through here. And this is why, oh, look at that, my television just turned off.
What?
Welcome to the Oak Island Plain. So all through here, this is shallow water. So this is Isaac's Point. So this would have been dry land back in the day. And you can see Billy Gerhardt has had to build these retaining walls here to protect the island from erosion. And if you look over here, Frog Island, you'll notice that whole island is retained.
Like the gentleman that has that comes and goes by quite a nice helicopter. Eh?
Takes the position. So that island over there, that's Sam's Island, so that belonged to Sam Ball.
Jeff, just like that area when they talk about ships
That
and
one
stuff
there,
coming
that's
and
Sam's
going,
Island.
when you look out here, there's only really 2 outlets to get in and out any large vessel. Like it's to come in here with a boat or be sinking.
So again, I believe whoever came here didn't come in one ship. Whoever came here, just like the 1715 fleet, the 1622 fleet, the 1654 fleet, they traveled in fleets, not only for protection, but to divide the assets up amongst the ships. So whoever came here, they didn't drop out of the sky, unless the aliens brought them. They actually came from the open ocean out there. And I believe not all of them made it. Because as Colin said, this area is treacherous all around Nova Scotia with these reefs. So I believe part of the Oak Island treasure is still in the ocean to this day. That's what I would like to think.
When are you starting that show of yours?
Which one?
The one where you're out looking for shipwrecks.
We actually did one last year called Secrets of the Sea. And you can view it on Bell Media here in Canada. Oh, have you seen it? You enjoyed it? So Bell Media, check it out, Secrets of the Sea if you live here in Canada. And we also did another one called Ghost Ships of the Atlantic. And so if we're lucky, thank you Jeff, we'll be doing it again this year.
We will be tuning in.
So all this area here, no big ships were sailing through here, this area here. But in saying that, there is stories of shipwrecks through here. And so there was an old diver, Robert McKinnon, who wrote a book a couple of years ago called Shipwrecks North of 40. And he believed that there was a treasure ship off that point there by Martin's Point. And I haven't managed to find that yet either. So now we're just going to put the hammer down a little bit. The interesting thing about Sam's Island is when Sam purchased that, some people said he got either McGinnis, Vaughan or Smith to purchase it because it was purchased and then sold to Sam. And the interesting thing is even though Sam was an ex-slave, he had a maid for his wife and he had a man helper for himself, Isaac Butler. And when Sam died, he left all his money to his family to look after the wife and kids. But his lands went to his man helper, Isaac Butler. And so my grandmother used to say to me when I was young, a good friend is one that'll help you bury the bodies. And I believe that Isaac Butler was Sam's good friend like that. Because he left him his lands on one condition, that Isaac Butler changed his name and became Isaac Ball, which he did. But after Sam died, he changed it back to Butler. Because if you look at the deeds when Sam Islands was sold in the mid-1800s, it was under the name Isaac Butler that sold it, not Isaac Ball. So now we're going to go in to the South Shore side. This is the other deep areas, or one of the three. One of them being Fred Nolan's house, one of them being Butler's Beach, and one of them being the south side.
Black Tahoe.
Yeah, I see it. That would be some of the Laginas, or maybe Craig Tester, or I don't know. Sorry, folks. I know the wind is bad. We're speeding up here for a bit. I'm trying to keep the wind noise down. We're talking to somebody on in the cart, in the golf cart. Well, I'm only using my my cell phone right now, folks. That's all I could use out here, and I don't have a windscreen for it. Sorry. Bear with us, and I'll try to keep it covered as much as I can. But we got a black SUV right here. Who is that inside?
So off my starboard bow, you'll see that roadway going up. And if you look to the top, you'll see Dan Blankenship's drilling truck from the 1970s. That rusty old truck at the top. And this triangle-shaped structure dead ahead, that was the stone triangle that was blown up by Dunfield. And that was in the area where Dan Blankenship found those timber structures. And so some people say it was in the shape of a sextant, that stone triangle, pointing up towards the money pit area.
Right here.
Yep, it almost looks like a swimming hole there now.
Yeah.
There's certainly lots of activity going on out there today.
Mm-hmm. Tell them you're busy.
It was on the ground, plus it was said to be rocks in the shape.
You're welcome, Kate. Thank you for tuning in.
Up towards the money pit area. And you might remember a couple of seasons ago, we found a triangle rock out here that was pointing up towards the money pit area. And people said, well, why would they put triangle rocks in the ocean? Back then it wasn't the ocean, that would have been dry land. So again, if you look over the side, you can actually see the reef. So we're only in 6 feet of water here. But that's here. Over there, it's 26 feet of water. So that's the deeper side. Where here you can actually see the water coming in. You see here, that's the reef. You can actually see, like Colin said, that area there is treacherous if you come across here. That'll take, okay in this, but if anything that draws, what is yours called, Colin?
Maybe 3 feet.
Yeah, wonder who that was.
So it's 3 feet to 6 feet on the right.
Right.
20 feet over here on the left.
So your depth finder started working with them?
Yep.
Once we got out of the...
It just quite
That's a
often things
huge
shut down.
change in
One
Thank you,
night
Kate.
Ian Spooner were out there, and we were doing scanning. So we had my 2 sounders here on, and another 3 set at different kilohertz. So
I don't
if
want to
set
block
this
your
thing
view,
at
but I'm going
800
to stand it.
kilohertz, it'll show me what's on the bottom. So if you look here, Don, you see I can see the individual rocks with the calc there now.
I have.
So I can change this. So this here, this was a dream years ago. To be able to do this. Look, I can see the individual rocks. And you see the kelp? And so back, you go back 20 years, this would have been cutting edge technology.
Yeah.
Now it's over the counter
He's
stuff.
showing on his GPS, honey.
And so with that, me and Ian have
Like the
5
reef.
different units set at different kilohertz, because the lower the kilohertz, you actually penetrate through the sand and the silt. So if you're looking for things like cannon and artifacts like that, you'll see it if you set it for 32 kilohertz. So this was set at 255, that one at 800. And then Ian's 2 other ones at different ranges. And all 5 units shut down simultaneously as we went through the triangle. Not once, but 3 times. And I mean, if it had been 1 unit shutting down, it's like, okay. But they had different power supplies as well. So it wasn't like they were on the same power supply. We had an inverter and we had a battery running for Ian's units. And yet they all shut down.
We got skinwalkers.
There's somebody waving at
That's
us.
Terry Matheson up there, the geologist. And so over here, that's the swamp area. So you see somebody walking into the swamp there now.
There's the big crane over there.
And that's the big pump as well.
Coffer Dam yet. Yay.
And if you look
Well,
up towards
that's-
the money pit area, you'll actually see the tent where it'll be a white, lean-to tent. And that's where Terry and the guys will be hanging out. And they check out any artifacts that come up. And the so you see the drill, the coring drill going there?
Mm-hmm.
Drilling the blob.
Drilling the blob. Actually, it looks like it. Can tell if he's in the money pit or up on the hill.
Doesn't get old, does it?
So it's like a game
See
now.
if you jump right over the side here.
Just drop the camera before you go over.
You see, we get you close enough that you can almost touch Oak Island, guys.
I know, right? Oh my gosh, we're that close.
So
they
believe
are
it or
growing.
not, it is crystal clear down there at the moment. It's just tannic. And when I say tannic, it's the runoff from the rivers.
All right, folks, you can see on there that excavator has the, I believe that would be the hammer to put down the pilings for the
That's right.
for the Coffer Dam.
Oh, Billy's in there.
Is that Billy in there?
Probably. He's the only one that runs after this stuff.
Oh, Billy, swing it around this way and wave hello with your bucket.
Let's go and see if it's Billy.
You
Eh?
can honk at him. I'll be prepared.
No, he's still gonna get you.
Billy's friendly.
Oh, you can see the pumping thing.
Yeah, the big pump's going too. The hose looks like it's I don't hear it running though. You would probably hear it running.
Probably would, yeah.
We're here.
No.
I can't believe we're here. Oh, look at that big crane. Right
Yeah, that's
there.
the yep.
Oh, he's gonna get ready to do something. He's gonna get a scoop.
I don't know.
Swamp is certainly drained.
Am I blocking anyone's view? Sorry.
Totally in the way, Jeff.
Sorry.
Everybody's view. I'm so sorry. Oh, wait, there's somebody. Where'd he go?
That's Billy.
Morning, Billy!
Billy!
Hey, Billy!
It's
So
the best
absolutely-
day ever,
Beautiful
Billy.
day.
It's lovely today.
That's right.
You betcha.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Thank
See you later, Bill. Take care, mate.
Do we know what's under those tubs?
That's on the left hand or right hand side there. That top. Under that one is that's where we stack all the gold and silver coins, and the other one is the Knights Templar treasure there.
I'll be right back.
That's why the Enterprise rental truck is here.
Yeah.
To us.
Stay tuned, right?
That's awesome.
Where all the bodies are carried.
That's pretty cool. I got a really good photo. I just sent Linda. She was getting a chuckle out of it.
I have bottles.
Yeah, that's the hammer to drive down the pilings for sure.
Drink lots. Gonna be on the water all day.
So this is lot 32 over here, guys. So you might remember this is where Stuart Wenzel, he was a local diver. He said he remembered wharf-like structures or buttons on the shore where the wharfs were pinned to. And so we were out here looking for flat stones and cribbing. So those square cribs, those wharf cribs. And so we found cribbing like stones in here and further out. And then also on the other side, remember they said that Sam Paul had a 50-foot wharf going out into the ocean.
Yep.
Well, you got to realize the water was 50 feet back. So it started at the water's edge. It wasn't a 50 foot.
Yeah, you dove on that. And one of them went quite a ways out. That was the 50 foot.
It was the same thing. It was so
Yep.
shallow, Jeff, that back in the day, it would have been right at the water's
Right. Remember when Terry DeVoe was talking about the stone road, and then he saw the rocks that were out here in this area? It looked like it might have actually extended out this way a little bit.
You know what? That's a very good point, Jeff. And so the Stone Road area is actually over there. And so the Stone Road, when they excavated that, you might remember there was those indigenous artifacts found as well. And some people said the road led up into the money pit area there. But you never know, like when we're actually finding stuff, way back in season 1 and 2, you remember I was probing the swamp with that big metal
Yes.
line?
Yep.
And I said it dropped off and it felt like a roadway or a walkway. And I even bought one of those rocks up and gave it to Marty. You know, and back then it was like, yeah, kind of cool, but who cares? And then now we realize it was actually something important. And so this is a learning curve for everybody. And so it's beautiful that we can have archaeologists working with the private sector here. Quite often that doesn't happen here in Canada. You know, what we have now is everything is controlled, you know, and it's not that joint effort anymore. You know, so back before 2010, if you found a shipwreck out here, you'd report it and you could claim a Treasure Trove Act license, and you would get a percentage of those treasures. So that made it worthwhile. Now, the government says, nope, it's all ours. So they'll send an underwater archaeologist down to confirm it. And what it's done is it's stopped the private sector. Why bother? You know?
Right.
Where in the UK, it's actually, you know, it's more collaborative. It depends on where you are in the States. Like Gary, he found that treasure ring on the 1715 ring, and down there you're allowed to keep it. Here in Canada, you'd have to hand that in for no reward.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Even if it's on the shore?
Yep.
I didn't realize that.
There's probably a lot of things people just don't even say they found because of that reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why if you're out detecting with your metal detector on the beach,
Keep your mouth shut.
you're not. You're looking for your wife's lost ring.
That's right.
There's a lot of us out looking for our wife's lost ring.
There's a lot of places you're not allowed to metal detect.
Yeah. Wasn't it Oak Island that started the whole treasure laws and all that stuff?
No, it actually goes. See, Oak Island, the whole myth around Oak Island, everybody thinks 1795, but it wasn't. It was 100 years earlier. It was actually, people believe Captain Kidd's treasure was buried. So we still have Captain Kidd's Rod and Gun Club. You know? And that's why people believe that there was pirate treasure on this island, even in the late 1600s. And the reason being is because Kidd was up here heading back to the UK. And see, Kidd, I actually feel sorry for Captain Kidd. Some people say, oh, he was a notorious pirate. He was not actually a pirate at the time. He was recruited by the governor of New York and King William as a pirate hunter. And his ship, Adventure Galley, was actually commissioned for him. But he was only a day out of port when the British Navy stopped him and took his crew. So he had to go back to port, his hand-picked crew now gone, and take what was left on the docks.
And they didn't take him.
And no, he
Why
was the
would
captain.
they not?
Because it was actually a
abscond with him
British,
as well?
because it was his warship, his ship, with authority from the king, but they still took his crew.
They still took his crew.
But not him because
And they left him with a skeleton
Well, because
crew.
then you'd think you'd have two.
They left
Chiefs.
him with a skeleton crew,
You know?
enough to go back to port and get another crew. So crews were fluid, they were between ships.
I dare say.
And so Captain Kidd, he thought when all the pirates were granted clemency, he thought he would get off as well with his connections in the hierarchy in England. But he wasn't, he was executed. And so those stories of Kidd's treasure is what made people believe that there was pirate treasure on this island. And even in 1795, when those guys were digging, you know, nobody would help them dig any deeper initially, because they believed that there was pirate treasure. And everybody knew that pirate treasure was guarded by ghosts. And they were very superstitious back then.
When I was a kid, Tony, there were stories about how there was a skeletal hand that was found and it was part of a curse and all that kind of good stuff.
There's all kinds of stories. There's the story of Covey Island over there, how the bloody handprint comes out on the rock there. Yeah. There's the story of the island over here, where the unmarried mothers were sent. It was like a convent. And there's a statue of the Virgin Mary. His eyes glow red when it rains. So there's all kinds of stuff. And there's the ghost ship, the young teaser that sails in the fog. So, I'm not telling you what to believe. These are just everybody's different opinions. As we said, everybody's got an opinion.
Didn't they find some of his treasure somewhere?
Barry Clifford, the one that found the wreck of the Widow, the one that we were diving on last year, he believes he found part of Captain Kidd's treasure off the coast of Madagascar. But that's not unusual as well, because that was a pirate bay. In fact, it's called Pirate Bay. And so it was the pirates Deboo's, Levasseur, and Kidd used to hang out in that area. But this whole area was called, as we've said before, and not all pirates were bad. Bartholomew Roberts, Ned Lowe was evil, but then you have guys like Sam Bellamy, who had the democracy in 1717. It wasn't just, you had English, French, Italian, Spanish, Native American Indians, and ex-slaves, all living, one man, one share, one vote. And it wasn't just men, we had women pirates as well. Anne Bonny, Mary Read, Grace O'Malley, and Mei Ling, or she had various names, but the Chinese madam, who had an army of 50,000 pirates.
Wow.
Tony, any chance you're going back to the Widow?
I would love to go back to the Widow. Actually, I was talking to Barry the other day. He invited me back. I would love to get back down there. It all comes down to time now, though, Jeff.
Yeah.
So the Widow and the Etosha, they were both awesome dives. Mal's obviously, him and he's got his young boy now.
Yep.
And so Mal and Abby are busy there. But I would love to get back to the Etosha as well.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to meet him down in Florida.
Nice.
Yeah. Mel Abt.
Fantastic young man.
Yes, he is.
And it's I was very fortunate, like me and my wife and my daughter. We went down there scoping it out, and then the show obviously decided to do some episodes down there after I went down and chatted to him. So, I mean, it was a great privilege for me. It was one of my childhood dreams, to dive the wreck of the Widow and the Etosha. So it's like I got into this when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
My mother bought me a book called Treasures Beneath the Sea, and in that book was a line that said, in all the banks and all the vaults in all the world, including Fort Knox, there's not as much gold, jewels, and treasure as there is on the bottom of the ocean. Mm-hmm. So from the age of 6, I was going to be a diver and a treasure. And so I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I'm living my best life. I really am. And again, it's thanks to guys like Marty and Craig and Rick, that we can actually all enjoy this adventure together. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where it'll lead. Maybe it will lead to Madagascar. Maybe it'll lead back to Jerusalem or Solomon's Temple. I have no clue. And as I said, everything we find doesn't give us an answer, just more questions.
Now, was that the NDA talking, or
What, eh?
No, I said, is that the non-disclosure agreement talking about?
I don't know. As my grandmother used to say, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
I like her.
So this here, we're going around this point. So this is slot 32, and these slots around here belong to Sam Ball as well. So we have 25, 26 over here. This was Sam Ball's and Captain James Anderson, the American pirate, or privateer. Does anybody know the difference between a pirate and a privateer? A piece of paper, that is it. One sent from your government.
Yeah, sorry about the wind, folks. I'm doing my best to try to keep it covered.
And you keep the sound covered?
Well,
Are they hearing anything?
oh yeah. But like when we're going like this, if they're getting a lot of wind noise, and I can't do anything about it.
And we didn't like
I wanted to, but I didn't want to bother the show. Lunenburg. Oh, the Arvin now.
again, like Colin said before, if you look to the north, you'll see that whole little reef area sticking up.
yeah.
That was all part of Sam's Island and still is at low tide.
Oh, right.
See the sticking up?
So that
Yeah.
there is Sam's
how big
Island,
the
still the
island
northern
used to be.
side. That
Wow.
reef, that is actually a
You
low
couldn't
tide.
drive.
You can walk right
Right
out.
straight across it looks like it's all over water.
What do you need to go
Rock
out there?
controls everything.
Oh, wow.
Even with this.
It's actually
Oh,
four.
cabbage out there too.
You know what? That's a good point. It's actually 4 lots now. It was sold in 2017, and I don't know who purchased it. If Marty had purchased it, it would actually be a very good place to look. You know, why did Sam purchase that island? You know, for what reason?
Yeah, exactly. Which island didn't the guys go? Was it Apple that they went over to in one season and looked around a little bit?
Oh, that was me, Jack, and Gary. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Was that on Apple? What was the name of that island?
That was Apple,
Apple Island, okay.
That was the apex of the Oak Island Triangle, mate.
Ah, that's right. Yep, yep.
I heard that they had used that for had sheep or something on it at one time.
Quite possibly,
I
Bob.
think that's a sandball or whoever they were using it as livestock.
Well, you've got to remember, in the winter here, even though this is the ocean, this freezes all the way
Okay,
out
thank
to
you.
Apple Island.
Wow.
So you're seeing little Apple Island out there?
Yeah.
It freezes all the way out there.
Wow.
And so in the 1970s, the young guys used to race their cars on the ice out here. And it was only 5 years ago, me and Ken and who else diving? Ryan, I think, we were out here diving, and we had the ROV with us, and ice was forming around the boat. Ken had to drive the boat, or start it up and move it so the props would actually break the sheet ice up around us.
I heard from some of the really old locals that they used to take horse and carriages to Hancock in the wintertime with ice. Now it doesn't never freezes out
That far anymore.
anymore. They say back in the day they used to take horse, and that's a long ways out there.
And so that's why we actually have cars on the bottom of the ocean here as well. So when you're doing magnetometer surveys here, sometimes you get these huge signatures, and everybody's like, cannon, shipwreck, treasure. And it's actually a car or something like that on the bottom of the ocean.
Do people ice fish out here too?
Not so much here, Jeff, but in La Have River, yes. Yeah. I mean, in the day, they would have ice fished out here. And you've
Chesapeake
got,
Basin, it smelts. and
it's
stuff.
not the ocean here that freezes the salt water as such. It's the freshwater runoff that sits on top.
Right.
That's that tannic layer that you're looking at now because of the rains we had last week. So when it's clear, it can be crystal clear out here. Like you can look down and you can actually see the scallops on the bottom here. Because this is where Stuart Wenzel, that was on the show a couple of years ago, talking about Sam Ball's wharfs.
Yeah.
This little area here is where he used to scallop fish. And we found hundreds upon hundreds of old scallop shells on the bottom of the ocean here. So that there is the freshwater swamp on Sam Ball's property there. So you see those dead
Yeah.
trees?
And that's where that one well is too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is the wall right around here as well?
So there's actually the foundations. Good point.
Yeah.
There's the foundations on the other side of the freshwater pond there.
Okay.
And so the freshwater pond, you've got like the well area. Freshwater pond, well area, and the foundations back in the trees there.
I know, that's why I need to.
So this is high tide now.
Okay.
So high tide is about 6 feet. And so to give you a reality check, we're in 6.5 feet.
Oh, wow.
So we would be out
So
of the
this
water.
would have been well dry land 400 years ago. This would have been like dry.
Hard to believe, isn't it?
So this is 6 feet of water here. So this, believe it or not, is the tidal zone. So on an extremely low tide, you can actually walk right out here. This is dry land. And so when they say Sam had a wharf 50 feet out, it would have been at the water's edge.
Cribbing?
Sorry?
Is that cribbing?
That's what, yeah, this is exactly right. So this is where Stuart Wenzel believes Sam's Wharf came out. Right. This is where we found the scallop shells and some of those stones.
Now, was that another wharf right there? Was that the other
That's
one?
what Stuart was saying, Jeff. But again, you've got to remember that the southwest winds, like Colin pointed out before, that's the open ocean there. You know, this area would have been pounded by those southwest hurricanes back then.
Hold this for a minute.
That's why the
gotta get
swamp
my battery
road has been open to the ocean 4 times since the 1970s and was opened that year we had the hurricane. And that's why the guys had to open it up again. So that goes to feed the theory that maybe it was 2 islands back in those days. If you look over the side now, you can see how crystal clear it is and how shallow that is.
Yeah, later in the summer when it's dry and not raining as much, it's tropical in places.
Yep, it all depends what the wind's doing. If we have a week of easterly winds, it brings the Gulf Stream in. So we have crystal clear blue
Honey,
water.
do you need something that's on
And
here?
then all it's got to do is swing
Babe.
around to the west, and it comes off the rivers and the lakes again, and this
Do you need
tannic water
this?
comes out, and then it gets dark. And then, as Colin said, because of the temperature rise that's happened the week before, with the Gulf Stream coming in, then we have a mass algal growth and bloom.
Yeah.
So then we have weed, algal growth, and plankton bloom, and then we can't see anything again. And that's when the sharks get snappy. It's when they can't
you want me
see.
to hit
They actually have
close?
way better eyes than us.
I left the
Do
piece
you want me
I
to
need.
hit close?
Yeah.
And so when they feel
I
the
left the
movement
piece
in
that
the
I
water,
needed
they
in
don't
the
have to see you. They can sense you with the lateral lines of their bodies. They can feel your
Wow.
flapping movement. And then as they get closer, they can actually sense the elevation of your heart rate.
There goes 2 more
Magnetic
cars
field
across
around
the
your heart.
causeway.
And then they sense 5 parts per million blood and water. So they are the perfect killing machine.
How close have you been to a shark?
I've actually had one right on top of me. And so I was in a shark cage in South Africa, off Huntsby, and the shark got on the cage. And then here, on
So
the
you
wreck,
did it on purpose.
yeah, but here on the wreck of the SS Atlantic, I jumped in the water one day. That day we had the really rough weather. I jumped in the water and I started going down. I didn't have any air in my BCD. I just sat on the side of the boat, flopped over the side, same as some of you probably saw on my Facebook page or Instagram page. And I went down, started going down right away, and then the lights went out. And I looked around, there's this big shark just going over the top of me. And she was erratic, she had her pectorals down, but it's because she was nervous. She was where, I was where she wanted to be. I was looking up at her belly, her soft spot. And so she swam away and I did my dive on the wreck. And so, again, you guys that are here from away, if you get a chance, go to the SS Atlantic Museum down in Terrence Bay. And have any of you heard of the SS Atlantic? Yeah. So she was sister ship to the Titanic, except she was built in the 1870s. And so it was 40 years before the Titanic that she did. Titanic wrecked on 16th of April 1912. The SS Atlantic wrecked on April Fool's Day 1873. And some say that's where your women and children first come from. Because every single woman and every single child perished that night. So she was beautiful. I think she was more beautiful than the Titanic. Because not only did she have a steam engine like the Titanic, but she was fully rigged for sail. She was the last of the sailing ships and the first of the steamships. And that's how they ended up here in Nova Scotia. They weren't meant to be here. They were heading for New York with immigrants from the UK and Europe, just like the Titanic. And they were running low on coal, they believed, because of a storm. So they decided to pull into Halifax. But the problem was, only one of the mates had been to Halifax, nobody else had. So the captain said, wake me at 3 in the morning and I will guide us into Halifax. At 3:15 in the morning, they hadn't woken the captain. And she rode up on Golden Rule Rock, just south of Terrence Bay, and snapped in half. And the stern section, carrying all the women, the children, and the married men, went below the waves. And the freezing cold North Atlantic waters came rushing in, tore all those women and children from their bunks, and pulled them away beneath the ocean, stealing their last breaths as they were And so, lots of the women washed up on shore. And what made it worse for them was they were immigrating. So a lot of their jewelry and money and coins was sewn into their clothes. So one lady washed up with 80 odd gold sovereigns in her clothing on the shore that would have taken her to the bottom like an anchor. And so only one child survived. John Hindley was his name. And he was 10 years old, and he asked the captain to sleep with his unmarried brother that night up in the forward quarters, the rough riding quarters. So as John's brother and his friends were drowning, they passed John through the porthole, and that's how he survived. So the quartermaster Speakman, he was the hero that night. He jumped into those freezing cold North Atlantic waters with a rope around him and swam ashore, securing the rope, and was instrumental in helping save the lives of over 450 men. So prior to the Titanic, it was one of the worst maritime disasters. Just off the coast here. You can snorkel it. It starts in 8 feet of water and goes down to 80. And nobody's heard of it because she was an embarrassment to the White Star Line. When they started salvaging it the following week, it wasn't the bodies they salvaged, it was the cargo, because cargo was worth money. It was only due to the public outcry that they started salvaging the bodies, and they paid more for a first-class body than they did for a woman, a child, or an immigrant. So you can see the grave where all the women, children, and immigrants are buried on the cliffs of Terrence Bay. So if you get a chance, please go there and just say Tony sent you. So on the island?
Yeah.
Stand by. We're on the other side.
I was
of the
worried about
causeway
being
now,
cold. Not a chance.
It's tricky. We've come all around the island.
This is true.
We would have been prepared for more. So it would have been
Everything looks bigger on TV.
Yeah, it does.
Including me. Somebody said, you look much smaller in real life.
They said that to Jeff too.
So that there is the real round island dead ahead. And that's for sale at the moment. What is it, 4 million, Colin?
Something crazy. Lots of parties out there. You want a party? It's a
Oh,
place to go
yeah.
in the summer.
I find treasure out there all the time, guys.
I bet you do.
In the summer, I go diving around the mooring field. And it's amazing how many pairs of sunglasses, and
Cell
gold
phone.
chains and watches and things you find out there.
Funny, beer can do that to people.
Yeah, a couple of wobbly pops. And, they say tequila makes you blow No, I don't either anymore.
The island's supposed to be some, is it a catering service that Marina was doing, or somebody locally?
No, I was actually in partnership with the Oak Island Resort and Conference Center. I was doing lobster boils on these islands.
That was you guys. Yeah.
So we would actually bring people out and we would have a lobster boil on Squid Island or sometimes one of the other islands. And we would have the table set up with white linen and Michaela would greet you with your champagne cocktail. And then we would do the lobster boil and the mussel bake on the island. But due to COVID, again, nobody could get staff. So the resort shut that side down. And we're hoping later on in the year, Colin, that might be resurrected again.
Squid Island's one of my favorite afternoon nap spots.
It's marvelous. Especially if you've got a northerly wind blowing, that little bay in Squid is perfect.
It's the best.
My daughter's favorite island is Bella Island. And so Bella Island, her name's Isabel, and I call my boat Belle. So she believes that Bella Island is her island. And when she was a little girl, I used to tell her that there was a pirate on the island, Pirate Sam. And he would bury treasure for Isabel. And she would run around the island and there would be an X in the sand. And she would dig it up. And there was those chocolate gold coins. Pirate Sam had left for her. And as she got older, her clues got harder and harder. She would get ashore. And there would be coordinates that long in sand. So she would have to take her compass and her GPS and go to those points. I was hoping she would believe until she was 20. And then maybe Pirate Sam would have left her keys to her car. Now she tells me that Pirate Sam is
And how old is she now?
She's 13 now. And I am so proud of her. She dives with me as well. And we just came back from Key West earlier on in the year. And nobody else was out there. It was such a rough day. And my 13-year-old daughter and me and my wife, we ended up jumping in on a reef there. And so she was brave. We had about 3-4 foot seas.
Oh,
boats
wow.
around us. And she had to sit down to get in because we get tossed in.
Oh, that was rough.
Once we're in the water, she's fine. You never guess I'm proud of her, right? My wife's how I ended up here. She dragged me back here with tails and shipwrecks. I was actually living in Vancouver at the time. And we met in a dive shop by accident because she had to come back for her mother who wasn't feeling well. And she got trapped here during a white wan, a snowstorm. So she went back to the dive shop and thought, oh my God, I need this dive clothes because I'm going to a friend's wedding in Belize. And they ended up calling me. I just come back from the Middle East on the job there. And they said, can you do this one-on-one? And I said, well, she's willing to get up at 6 in the morning. And so she did. And she went and did a dive down in Belize and brought me back a t-shirt. And then I'll say she took me out for dinner and brought me a beer, and she'll say I took her out. Then I fell asleep and she banged me on the head, just like the first game. So I woke up here in Nova Scotia.
All worked out pretty good by the sounds of it.
Yeah. But no, we're so fortunate. We dive together as a family, and so when you have that common interest, you know, it's not like it's one person's, you know, obsession.
You gotta get started.
I want to. I do.
Maybe
She's
he'll
grown
teach
up
you.
on the boat. She's been on the boat since she was 9 days old, and she actually co-narrates with me when she's on the boat as well. So she can drive the boat, and anything that I can't translate in French, she speaks French. But she's a businesswoman. Everything she translates, I've got to pay her an extra $1.
Very smart. I wonder who taught her that, Mom or you?
Oh, that's Mom. Mom's a lawyer, Jeff. Well, we might just shoot back into the money pit area. I think there's some action up there now. You guys are not on a schedule to be anywhere, are you?
Oh, no, no.
Oh.
What happened?
Are you meant to be somewhere?
I thought he walked.
You couldn't hear the answer, so I had to slow the boat down here.
Oh yeah, look right there. Something's going on in the two cars.
Yeah.
Who
I
is
don't have
that?
my glasses on. Who we got up there?
Who is it?
I can't tell.
Where's those binoculars?
Yeah, who's got the binoculars? Who is that?
I don't think they
Linda and Kat have the binoculars.
I don't know if he's annoyed
Middle
or
of something.
not. It's like, whatever.
Probably lunchtime.
Yep.
Maybe
The lunch
so.
is delivered.
Oh, here's
That's Steve.
There's Steve. Oh, they're going down here. They're going down to see Billy.
Or Billy left, I think. Nope, no, he's still over there.
Yeah, somebody's still in the excavator.
Nope, they're flying right past
Heading
him.
back to head base or home base for lunchtime.
It could be lunchtime, actually.
Does he not know how to turn around?
Whoever it was, he waved at us.
Stopped. He got out of the car. Look right here.
Yeah.
There. Who is that?
I don't know.
Oh, he's picking up some trash.
That's all right. We'll
We're
be
just
back.
going around Isaac Point again now. We're giving this reef a wide berth.
It's been
You can
amazing.
see the channel that comes in
God, it's
there.
amazing. Oh, yeah, you can see, you know? Pretty good channel that comes in.
Moves along pretty good for a boat.
Pretty nice, huh?
There's 12 people on board as well.
They follow around, or are we following them?
Come back out.
What do you think, Jeff? Worth the trip or what?
Oh my gosh. That's the best birthday ever, Tony. Thank you.
Come and drive the boat, Jeff, and we'll get a shot of you.
Oh,
There you go, honey.
no, are you serious?
There we are, Jeff.
All right, where am I going?
Back towards the resort.
All right.
This is a shout out for Jack as well. Hopefully you're feeling better, Jack. Wish you could be up here with us now.
That's nice.
Awesome.
They say, hi, Captain.
I'm cruising a boat around Oak Island. Tony's boat. This one is the what bell?
This is Ocean Bell.
Ocean bell. My Emma told me yesterday.
Oh, that's probably Tom.
Oh, somebody's out on the dock.
Yep, he's putting his dock out.
Not a bad driver for a land.
Hey, you know what? I was a Navy man.
Yay.
Yeah, what do you have?
Oh,
straight towards the
Seeing if he'll wave.
Wait, they gotta move it. Oh, that's a good
You should
picture.
be in Hollywood. Oh, really?
Yeah, I got the captain here, like, drinking, having fun over the course.
Joe got a face that's great for radio. Yeah.
That's a good shot. Nobody's driving the boat, Colin. Are we going the right direction, Colin?
All right for now.
Okay.
Hasn't moved, so I guess we'll
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, this is such a beautiful day. I mean, I
Definitely brought the luck.
brought the luck with me. I did.
You brought the good weather.
Yep.
What else do I have in my little box here?
These box of trinkets.
Any gold coins?
Never know your luck. That there's ammunition from the bottom of Halifax Harbour.
Oh.
So you might recognize that, Jeff. That would have been a live 50 cal round.
Yep.
You see the primer still intact on the bottom?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Very cool.
50 cal.
That's crazy.
They use that for shooting down airplanes. There were, well, lots of different things, but they shot them at airplanes that were attacking the
caliber was that with?
50 cal. Yep. Colin?
When you dive all around the world, there's a lot of coins that turn up. A lot of Spanish coins, and with as long as metals are not touching each other, because it's the same as zinc on the outboard motor. It'll sacrifice itself. The more noble metal sacrifices itself as an anode. So we put zinc on the outboard motors to protect them. So sometimes when metals are touching each other, the more noble one will sacrifice itself as an anode. But if you find them in concretion, so all that organic concrete, or in an anaerobic environment, so like silt or sand or mud, then quite often they can come out of the ocean the same as they went in. So that one there, that's a Queen Victoria penny from 1900. Wow. There we have a King George penny, and that one's from 1906.
That's very cool.
So that there is a silver spoon from the Canard White Star Line.
Oh, wow.
And that there is a button from the late 1700s.
Are these things that you found?
These are all things that I found.
Wow.
So different parts of the world have different rules. I've actually got a beautiful bottle of Chanel perfume from 1917 off a ship that hit a sea mine.
Wow, those are awesome.
So it's like, once you find your first gold coin, then you're hooked for life.
Can you do a gold dance underwater?
Yes, and I have done
Oh.
one
Did you? Oh.
a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Oh, jeez.
It's worn right off, whatever it was, yeah.
Yeah.
If it ever had anything.
It was a button.
There goes my boat.
What, honey?
There goes my boat over there.
Oh, I'd be okay with one of those.
Yeah.
He's a plain dog.
Get a great shot of Tony's bum right now.
So you saw that 50 caliber round. That was off a wreck in Halifax Harbour called the Clare Lily. And if you check out that article I write for Atlantic Boating Magazine every quarter, It's online as well. You can check it out online. Atlantic Boating Magazine. The wreck of the Clear Lily. That's where that 50 caliber round come from. But this one here, I found this off the coast in England, and that's a musket ball from the 1750s.
Oh wow.
It's like the tiny. He's in the bottom of the ocean. How can he find that little tiny thing?
I know, right?
You know what? It's the funny thing is nature doesn't do linear features. Nature doesn't do straight lines. So some people say, well, what about bubbles and rainbows? But if you're on a beach off a coastline, you've got the rocks and then you've got the sand. The sand's going to be parallel to the beach most of the time. So anything that's perpendicular, a straight line through that, is not normal. And so unless it's some sort of vein or mineral vein, so you start looking for that. You go over an underwater metal detector or a magnetometer, and that's when things start to stand out. So that there, that is a Spanish coin, a 2 real from 1659.
Didn't you find one on the Witter?
We found silver coins on the, that we did, yep. And also we found a slither of silver on the Tosha. The funny thing there was on
I'm sorry, you didn't get to see it.
Down in 1622, so the Tosha sank in 1622. And where that little piece of silver was in the coral reef where we'd blown, I also found an American 1 cent piece from 1965.
Wow, in the same spot.
And so what happens is all this stuff falls off people. They jump in or go swimming, and it sifts down through the sands of time with the storms and the hurricanes, and ends up in the same place as a coin from 1622.
Wow.
Yeah, it is time travel. So there's all kinds of stuff just waiting on the bottom of the ocean, just like that book my mother brought me. And I mean, if you just Google the San Jose, she's off the coast of Colombia, and they've been in court now, I think, for it's got to be 5 or 6 years. Everybody wants a piece of it. Because the Spanish ships now, Spain as a country is broke. So every ship that comes up, a Spanish ship, they say, oi, that's ours, give it back. But now the other countries are learning to do the same. So with the San Jose off the coast of Colombia, the Colombians stuck their hand up as well and said, well, hang about, that's our bloody emeralds you stole. And then the British said, well, hang about, it was war. We sank it, it's ours. And the Americans said, we helped find it, it's ours. The Peruvians said, well, hang about, it's got the Inca treasure on board, that's ours. So the only people who are going to win out of this one are the lawyers, I think.
Yes.
But if you just
The
Google
real
it, they
pirates.
estimate they found another 2 ships with there last year, anything from $5 to $20 billion. Billion. No, that's the one from Colombia.
Isn't there one off Florida that's in that kind of? Rick and Marty were involved in that or something.
That's
Didn't
the-
I see a show about that?
That's the no, that was the Atosha. That was the one we were on.
Yeah.
They've recovered about 800 million of that so far.
But wasn't there some?
Yeah, there was one where John Chatterton went down there.
Oh, that was probably the Republic. They called it the $1 billion wreck.
Yeah, and they weren't allowed to do anything with it. They told them, nope, you can't bring anything up from it. They wouldn't let them have anything.
If you Google Allen Explorations, there's another one in the Bahamas that they're doing at the moment, and they partnered with the Bahamian government. So that's all going to end up in a museum in the Bahamas. So it depends on like the deals that get struck between the countries now. If it's international waters or if it's territorial waters, there's all these rules now. Yeah. So some say the rules make things better, but all it really does is turn people back into pirates. Because I mean, if you're swimming down there or even walking along the beach and you find a handful of gold coins from the 1600s, I mean, it's up to you whether you hand them in or whether your grandmother gave them to you. So I
Love
think-
that, Grandma.
I think a collaborative approach is way better than what we've got.
Yeah.
I think the Nova Scotia government's done a big disservice to history and archaeology. This problem, they have to fight.
Yeah, I would agree with you, but I've already got a big target painted on my back anyway.
I work for historical
have metal detectors bring us stuff, so we don't ask. We just ask that they keep coordinates of where they found it, and we document it. But the archaeologists, we have to kind of fly under the radar because we're dependent on Swiss museums and all this cool things for our funding.
Put all this stuff away.
Of wonderful history that's out there. If anyone accesses
Did you already put the other mic in there?
we have to be so careful about each development through here.
Well, I mean, the government hasn't got money for exploration. Can you imagine if they turned around and took $1 billion out of healthcare and put it in the next country? I mean, I'd be all for it.
But there are people who are willing to fund that exploration as
Exactly.
a partnership.
Yeah, but they just, that is a hard no from the government. And, you know, I believe it's stupidity, but as I said, yeah, everybody's got an opinion.
I think, could it be dead?
I hope not.
I mean,
Oh, there.
You see it say off. You got a hole here.
It's off.
well, I worked on one job when I said to the guy, I said, you know what, you can have all the historical artifacts you want after I got gold. So this here is our Mahone Bay inshore rescue guys coming out. Distress, Mahone Bay inshore rescue here.
So they're being called out now?
No, a lot of time they just patrol them. You know, so it's, you know, some people run out of fuel. You know, some people get drunk. Some people do silly things. It's the ocean.
A lot of me students from the Coast Guard College and stuff.
Yeah, it's a great job for the young ones. It really is. Yeah. And they get water time. They get a great suntan.
The Canadian
Not a bad job at all, is it?
A lot of these guys, these are all kids, right?
right?
Right, kids, young adults.
Yep. I didn't have you in the U.S. Coast Guard.
Those are
He's
the
out now.
cats that helped us pull the sailboat off Apple Island. And
That thing flies.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to have one of those, an ex-Coast Guard one, and I hit wave and the whole boat and the props out of the water were screaming.
Oh.
It's a lot of fun.
That's a fun.
That one there, I would guess about $500. Mine back in the day, you did about 300. The price of fuel's gone through the roof. On my dive boat, to fill that, you're around $1,000. So that's the one we use on Oak Island. And the dive barge, it's the same thing. You've seen us use that barge on Oak Island. That's about $1,000. Just like Colin said, it's 12:30 and you can see that wind is picking up every lunchtime in Nova Scotia. I don't know, what is your bird, Colin? Probably 6 gallons an hour for noise?
If I'm on full cruise, those on it, it'll be 50 liters an hour. Under medium run, but just puttering around like this, it's 6, 7, 8 liters per hour on putter, which we're doing 90% of the time.
I know with my dive boat, she's got twin 90s. And so she's aluminium, so she'll be lighter than yours. But each engine is 4 or 6 gallons an hour.
This is my neighbor down here. She's got a new boat with twin 425 horsepower supercharged.
Whoa.
engines.
How big is the boat?
36 feet. It's not even a
Oh my goodness.
Oh, jeez.
Anyway, his fuel bill would be acceptable.
Yeah.
It would pass anything except a gas station.
Well, Tony, that was exceptional to say the least.
Yes, it was.
I'm so glad you guys had fun.
Oh, man.
It's wonderful being here with all of you and enjoying the same thing about Oak Island.
Yeah.
Love Oak Island.
Okay. Is the camera off, mate?
No, not yet. I will in just a second. I just wanted to say thank you to Tony Sampson and Salty Dog Sea Tours for taking us out today.
Thank you so much. much. Thank you so much. And I love the support. What's that one? Those ones were purchased offline.
Yes.
So it's a group called Shopify. But I do.
All right, folks, we're going to say sign off for right now, but we'll be back on later on. We're going to do some more stuff. We're going to go out on Colin's boat and have a great time. So I tell you what, it's been an awesome birthday today out here with Tony Sampson, Salty Dog Sea Tours. If you get a chance, you have to come and do this for yourself. This has been an awesome day. Thank you so much. We'll tune in later, guys. Have a great afternoon.
The Yamahas, they're an amazing engine. They really are. So even commercially here, you can get about